Okay, as you can see, I got 5 adults.
Hello, my name is Officer Keith Bullock with the Miami Township Police Department. I've been a police officer for 16 years, and for the past 10 years I've been a TASER and self-defense instructor. The TASER has been the most effective tool developed for law enforcement in modern times, but its over-application and health risk has caused the law enforcement to restrict its use and to put a higher threshold on when an officer can deploy this highly effective, less lethal weapon. I will start by talking about the nomenclature and the science behind the effectiveness of the TASER. Once we have a grasp on how the TASER works, I will discuss court rulings from federal courts. These rulings have provided guidance to law enforcement officials in order to make policy changes. These policies provide law enforcement officers with the specific guidelines that must be followed in order to deploy the TASER against a combative suspect. The TASER is both highly effective and highly controversial, and I hope this speech today will help you understand the effectiveness of this less lethal weapon. I would like to start off today by taking a look at the X26 Advanced TASER I carry each day while on duty. According to TASER.com, the X26 has 3 main parts. They are the X26 TASER, the TASER Cam, and the XP25 cartridge. The X26 has a firearm appearance that houses the brains of the TASER. The X26 has features such as a laser sight, a high-efficiency flashlight, and a microcomputer that records each time the TASER is deployed. The TASER Cam and battery captures a 1-hour loop of both audio and video when the TASER is activated, and can even show images in complete darkness using infrared technology. The XP25 cartridge is what I carry while on duty and stands for a 25-foot cartridge with extended probes. According to TASER.com, the TASER can be used in 2 different modes, and they are the probe mode and the drive stun mode. The probe mode is used with a cartridge attached and is deployed by pulling the trigger. Once the trigger is pulled, the probes are propelled at the suspect using compressed nitrogen, and the probes stick into the suspect's skin or clothing. The drive stun can be used with a spent cartridge or without a cartridge attached, and again is activated by pulling the trigger. Now that you have a working knowledge of what the TASER is and how it works, let's take a look at the science of why the TASER is so effective against combative suspects. When stun guns were first developed, they relied on pain for compliance. But TASER has advanced this technology, and it now affects both the sensory and motor nervous systems. When the probes are deployed from the cartridge, they are designed to spread prior to striking the suspect. Once the suspect is in contact with the probes, an electrical pulse is sent into the body that mimics the electrical waves in the sensory and motor nervous systems. This electrical pulse causes stimulation in the nervous system, causing NMI, or neuromuscular incapacitation, which causes involuntary stimulation of both the sensory and motor nervous systems. The TASER technology was designed to cause incapacitation and involuntary muscle contractions, which makes secondary injuries possible due to falls. The TASER's ability to incapacitate suspects who are being aggressive has proved very effective by a recent study completed by the National Institutes of Justice in May of 2011. The study's most significant finding was the use of pepper spray and TASER greatly decreased injuries to the suspects, while the use of the TASER decreased injuries to officers. The science is what makes the TASER effective, but this effectiveness comes with great responsibility. So let's take a look at some recent court rulings about when and under what circumstances law enforcement can deploy the TASER. The TASER started to be used in law enforcement in 1999 and has taken years for court rulings and challenges to make their way through the judicial system. The court case most used for use of force rulings rely on Graham v. Connor, which relies on the objective reasonableness test and looks at all cases through the totality of the circumstances. Graham versus Connor uses a 3-pronged test when examining excessive use of force. The first being, what was the severity of the crime the suspect was committing or about to commit? 2, did the suspect present an immediate threat to the safety of the public or the officer? And 3, was the suspect actively resisting or attempting to escape? Another case that dealt directly with the use of the TASER is a case out of the 9th Circuit in Bryant versus McPherson. The 9th Circuit characterized TASER as an intermediate weapon, and it required a justification of a strong governmental interest to deploy the TASER. In response to these court rulings, law enforcement made it much more restrictive to use the taser, and officers needed a much more justification in order to deploy the taser. As you have heard, these court rulings have a major effect on law enforcement community and the use of the force policies that govern the taser's use. So let's take a look at how law enforcement policies have been adjusted to adhere to these court rulings. Most, if not all, law enforcement has made adjustments to their use of force policy in regards to taser deployments. A recent study committed by the Police Chief magazine of the Orlando Police Department shows when taser policy was changed to deploying taser against actively resistant suspects instead of passively resistant suspects, the number of taser deployments decreased. An examination of the use of force data reveals that after the policy change, which raised the level of force for the use of force continuum for taser deployments, showed that electronic control devices used by Orlando officers decreased by 29%. In this same study, injuries to suspects also decreased by 31.5%, but the study also showed that injuries to officers increased by 12.5%. A recent Cincinnati Herald article reported Cincinnati Police Department has made changes to its use of force policy with regards to taser usage to reflect recent court rulings where Graham versus Conner was cited. Another recent study completed by the Stanford Criminal Law Center for a city in California suggested going well beyond Graham versus Conner and mandating tasers only be deployed in deadly force situations. I hope I have illustrated how law enforcement agencies are making adjustments to their use of force policies demanded by courts in regards to use of force and tasers. I want to first thank you for listening to my speech today about this very important topic for law enforcement. I hope that I have shown that the taser is a valuable tool with assisting officers in the performance of their duties. I hope you now have at least a working knowledge of how the taser was developed and the science behind its effectiveness. As you have heard, courts have strong opinions about how and when tasers should be deployed to effect an arrest. The law enforcement community has heard these court opinions loud and clear and are making adjustments to comply with these rulings. I'm sure further adjustments will be made in the future, and law enforcement will change and adapt to make sure to adhere to the standards set by the courts and the community. The taser has proved to be an effective, less lethal weapon used by law enforcement to subdue combative suspects. I hope through continuing dialogue and understanding with the public, the taser will continue to be an acceptable use of force option by law enforcement for many years to come.
And it recorded.
Oh,